Hello, I'm Christine. The Lord of Shadows release approaches. The book cover has dropped. It's Crackpot theory time, folks. Okay, so I'm gonna preamble this video by saying, do not watch this if you have not read every single Shadowhunter book ever. Beware! Enemies of the air, of spoilers, beware. Let's get into it. So the cover of Lord of Shadows has dropped. It was kind of a shock, first off, because I didn't even see a person. Whoa, we're used to big bodies, cut off heads. After half a second, you realize there's a little Julian up floating in the corner. But the city is not Los Angeles. Immediately, I was like,
That's London. That's London.
what do you mean, London? We associate Dark Artifices right now with Los Angeles. Like we associate City of Bones and Mortal Instruments with New York and like Clockwork and London. London is on the cover. It's bigger than Julian is. There's so much room around Julian. He could be taking up this entire side of the cover. Why is he so small? What does it mean? So Lord of Shadows, a lot of people have been like, who is the Lord of Shadows? What's the Lord of Shadows? In my opinion, all signs point to that being Julian. First obvious clue, Julian's on the cover. But in Lady Midnight, there are so many hints about Julian's dark side. There's that line from the Fae, you have a ruthless heart. There's the whole incident at the end with Nightshade. And then there's a specific thing that Julian says that just tipped it over the edge on the foreshadowing scale for me. He straight up quotes Malcolm Fade. At the start of the book, I just reread the little section. Malcolm was like, yeah, I came to Los Angeles to raise true love from the dead. Right there in front of us. He also says, there's nothing more important than love and no higher law. And at the end of Lady Midnight, Julian straight up says, there's nothing more important than love, there's no higher law. Everything's pointing to Julian heading down a dark path, going through some dark times, heading for some morally gray areas. For love, he's doing it for love. But there's a line there, and I don't think Julian sees any lines. He just sees what he wants and how he needs to get there. If you've read Shadowhunter Academy, you know about James Herondale. James Herondale has the ability to turn into a physical shadow, like a ghost, like a shadow. Things can pass through him, and then he can come back to physical form. He has this ability because of Tessa. Tessa has a little bit of demon inside of her, and that comes out in James as the shadow ability. And the eyes, the gold eyes. Lord of Shadows! Why didn't I connect this before? Now, of course, immediately, I had to go reference my copy of Clockwork Princess. You know, gotta find out, is there a direct line descending from Will and Tessa down to Mr. Julian? I whip out the map. And what do you know? Lucy Herondale married Jesse Blackthorn. So we don't know much about Lucy. We don't know how this demon trait showed up in her. But we do know she married a Blackthorn and they had children. And it says, see extended Blackthorn family tree under their child line. Which means their child line is relevant and we can't see it yet because spoilers, which means there's a very high probability that they led down to Julian. All those kitties might have a little bit of that demon blood in them, sparking some magic up in there, okay? What does this mean for Julian? Could it possibly mean that he too has this shadow ability? So not only would he be like the metaphorical Lord of Shadows, he'd actually maybe be a Lord of Shadows. So if Julian does have this shadow ability, if he does have a little bit of warlock demon blood in him, what does this mean for the Parabati bond? Because we know that we're looking for a loophole, obviously. We're looking for a way out of this Parabati relationship between Emma and Julian. We find out that the super Parabati bond creates warlock level powers between these two people, okay? And it drives them mad and it kills everyone around them and blah, 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 blah. Shadowhunters are not built to withstand that level of magic. They're not built to be magicians. Okay, but if Julian is descendant of Tessa and he has this warlock blood running through him, could he possibly handle that magic? Could he possibly withstand that much power because he does have this added lineage inside him that is made to withstand that type of power? I wonder if Tessa had a Parabati, if she could withstand that type of power, because she is a warlock slash shadow hunter. That just opens up a whole realm of possibilities. But of course, on the other side, we have Emma. And Emma needs to be able to withstand this type of power too, or else it's still everything's gonna go to shit. Emma, though, at the end of Lady Midnight, had this whole showdown with Malcolm Fade. He had his black book of magic, and she stabbed it with Cortana, and something weird happened. She got like electrocuted, she couldn't move, it went up her arm felt like it was on fire. I have a bunch of theories. And one of them is that something happened and the magic in that book imprinted on her in some way, or joined with her in some way that would now allow her to wield this level of magic without going mad as well. That's a loophole there. That could possibly free them from the madness that comes upon Parabati that fall in love. Now, that's not my favorite theory about what happened when she stabbed the book with Cortana. My favorite theory there is that when she stabbed the book, whatever ran through her arm and electrocuted her and she couldn't move and burned like fire, severed the Parabati connection. Now, we haven't had a Parabati thing really happen after that incident. We didn't have any magic, rune exchanges, or throwing up water while the other's drowning. Like, we haven't seen the connection work since then in the way that it does. So there's a chance. What if they severed the bond with that and just go through all this shit in pain for no reason, because it's done. It's gone. It broke when she stabbed the black book. That would be ideal. Now, after that happened, Emma ended up stabbing Malcolm with Cortana, and then his body went into the ocean along with the book, and now Jem and Tessa are out looking for that body in that book. I feel like there's a good chance that Malcolm is dead because he's a very powerful warlock. He could possibly have healed himself in the ocean. And Annabelle has risen from the dead. In order for her to wake up, Blackthorn blood had to be shed. I know a lot of you have theorized in the comments that the Blackthorn blood that was spilt was Kit or Johnny Rook's blood when that whole shebang went down in the Rook house. Their house maybe was on the ley line. I don't know. I thought that it had to be spilt in that cave. That's why they were in the cave. And there's a good chance that one of the Blackthorn children spilt their blood. But let's pretend that someone had to die. What if one of the children did die? Now, this is a little more far-fetched, but like, what if one of the children did die and Malcolm is inside them? And that's why it has appeared that nobody died. What if he like magicked himself into a Blackthorn when he was getting killed? They traded and he's living on as one of them, and we don't know which one. And okay, I know this one's really, really far-fetched, but like, maybe. Since Annabelle is alive, I really feel like Malcolm is alive. Because it breaks so much of the excitement if the guy who raised her from the dead isn't ever gonna see her again. You know, there's no more tension. She's just there. She's just a loose Blackthorn ghost necromancy cannon with no lover to fight for her, right? I wonder if when she stabbed him with Cortana, if a piece of his soul maybe got stuck in Cortana or went into Cortana and is in her sword. He could come back using that bit of soul. My mind has gone to like a very Harry Potter, Voldemort, Horcrux area. But he's a warlock. I feel like he was a very intelligent, practiced warlock. And there was a will to live. He found a way to do it. But what if his essence is somehow living inside the sword? Now, on the cover of Lord of Shadows, it's Julian holding a sword. Is that sword possibly Cortana? He's underwater. That's where we last saw Malcolm fade. He's lost and he's in London. Malcolm is a special, talented warlock, and he knows all the dark magic from the Black Book. Will something possibly come up where they will need Malcolm fade? Will he be essential to some process where they need his expertise to stop dark magic from happening? Maybe Annabelle, she was risen from the dead with this black magic from Malcolm. Maybe she's gonna be an unstoppable force of nature that's crazy and evil, and Malcolm will, in the end, have to be the one to put her down. Maybe they will need to resurrect him, and maybe his soul happens to be in the sword, and they can resurrect him with that. Other things I really want to happen in Lord of Shadows, Emma has to tell Julian about the bad effects of Parabati love. It annoys me so hard that she has taken the stance to keep this to herself and to separate without sharing the side effects. Just tell him, this is why. We're all gonna die and go mad, and this is why. Now Julian's just gonna be in this dark period wondering what went wrong and why is she dating my brother, and I hope the dating Mark thing does not go on for long. Okay, I hope that crashes and burns real fast. Let's talk about Kit and Ty. I feel like there's two ways that Kit and Ty's relationship can go. I feel like they like each other. I think that's either going in the romantic direction or in the Parabati direction. At this point, I can't tell for sure. Is there a possibility that Kit will go to New York to train with Jace? When are we gonna have the Kit, Jace, beautiful family meeting party? In Lady Minute, they also talk about how Jem and Tess are looking for something and that something is dangerous. Now, presumably, Kit is dangerous. They were looking for Kit. Is dangerous because Katrina Loss illegally saved his life back in the day and raised him as her own. So Katrina can get in a lot of trouble from the Cleve if the reason for his existence comes out. I believe Emma dreamed that she would have to help Jem and Tessa when they found this dangerous thing. So will Emma be the one to help Kit? Is there something else that's making him so dangerous? What is it? Could Kit possibly be the Lord of Shadows? I don't think so. Are there possible ways that we can break the Parabati bond? Either Emma or Julian could become a werewolf or a vampire. I know nobody wants to turn into a werewolf or a vampire. So the Fae have become a much bigger part of our lives in Lady Midnight because some of the children are half Fae. And it's been set up that the Seelie Queen will lose her power if her crown is stolen, and the Unseelie King will lose his power if they steal his cape. I mean, now that we have this information, that shit has to be stolen. It's just waiting. We're waiting to act on that. The circumstances to which we'll need to do that are not yet clear, but that's gotta come up. We do have this looming threat of Sebastian. The Seelie Queen has been missing. My theory from the very second we saw Sebastian was with her, she's gonna get pregnant with his child. So running with that, I've been looking for his child on every waking corner. Although we don't see him in Lady Midnight, a child has popped out of nowhere. Alec and Magnus have adopted another child, or taken in another child. This child is 5 years old. Alec found him on the streets in Buenos Aires. He has dark hair, which doesn't really match for a Sebastian child, because Sebastian had white blonde hair, and Miss Fairy Queen has luxurious red hair, I'm pretty sure. So the fact that he has dark hair kind of throws me off there, but he has to be significant. He's a Shadowhunter child. We'll see what happens there. I'm definitely suspicious, but I'm not over the top suspicious. Like, I'm not pointing at him 100%. You are the spawn. It has been announced that Magnus is going to be getting his own series, an adult series. So there is a chance that we won't get to learn much about his children until that series comes out. In Lord of Shadows, I think we're going to learn a lot more about the history of Parabatis falling in love, the history of the Blackthorn line, why their motto is the rebel-ass motto that it is. We're going to London. We're going to learn about our past. There's a part of me that's really hoping that Julian and Emma go visit Claire and they're like, we really need to get rid of this Parabati ruin. Maybe you can invent a back-in-time ruin and we can just go back to that point when we were 13 and we became Parabati and nobody stopped us, even though Simon realized that Julian was in love with me. And Clary just makes it happen. They both put it on, and suddenly, by accident, they've gone too far back in time. They're back in the Annabelle times. And Malcolm and Annabelle are there, and they're gonna kill Annabelle for being with Malcolm, and it's like Back to the Future. That would be the funnest. At the end of this short story that we read, Simon and Izzy's engagement party, Chase and Clary start making out. Things get serious. Starts talking about how she mended him, and she says she's shaking when she says, no, you did that yourself. And he says, so will you? Will I what? Will you marry me? And Clary hesitates. She says nothing, and Magnus busts in and says there's an emergency, and that's when they portal off to the Blackthorns in California. And right before the end of the story, she's like, when she got back, she'd have to give him her answer. She dreaded it. What the is going on with these two? They're just talking about how in love they are and how everything's wonderful and hunky-dory and she's so proud and he's running the New York Institute. I don't understand. Even if Magnus had busted open the door and said there was an emergency, if your boyfriend that you're completely in love with and want to be with forever asks you to marry him, you don't just let's put a pin in that and walk off like nothing happened. What was she planning to ask and he asked first and ruined all her plans? Is she afraid of stepping on Izzy's toes? No, because she's just dreading his answer. They could keep it a secret. They could just be engaged and not tell anyone, or they could just be engaged and not get married until after Simon and Izzy. They don't have to have a double wedding. That scares me. What's happening there? The biggest new question swirling in my mind is what is propelling them to go to London? Is everyone gonna go to London? Is there gonna be some big Shadowhunter gathering there? Maybe Malcolm shows up in England, or that's where Annabelle is, and that's where they have to go to hunt him. I don't know. Will Jem and Tessa be able to locate and retrieve the Black Book and Malcolm's body early on in this book, or are they going to be missing again the whole time on a journey looking for something? I mean, that alone will change the dynamic of everything. And going to London, are they going to go to London with the Blackthorns? Is it going to be a cool trip where everyone heads over there, including Malcolm's body? I think that about wraps up my crackpot theories for today. I'm so excited to read Lord of Shadows and see where it goes. Holding out hope for my time travel ruin.